Hello Year 9. For this lesson we're going to look at 6-mark questions in the Science GCSE exams. They're the longer questions which require more of an extended answer, and they come up in biology, chemistry and physics. These 6-mark questions tend to strike fear into students, and they are notoriously badly done. The WJC tell me that the mean mark, the average mark out of 6, is 1.6, which is terrible, isn't it? Because when you think about it, if you gain another 3, if you gain 3 or 4 or 5 marks in a question, that can be the difference between 2 grades. So I think it's really worth addressing this and trying to tackle some of the science, but also some of the skills that you need to do a bit better. Okay, so looking at this physics question first and the skills and science that you need to write the perfect 6-mark answer. To begin with, it is a 6-mark question, so you're going to need to write a detailed answer. The QER, quality of extended response, means that you will be marked on your literacy skills. So despite the fact that you might have 6 bits of correct science in your answer, if the literacy isn't up to standard, then you won't be given a mark in the 5 or 6 mark region. You'll be marked down. So it's really important that you know how to write these answers well. Okay, let's look at the question itself. Describe how you would investigate the current voltage characteristics of a filament lamp. And then it gives you 3 things to include in your answer. You need a diagram, how you would obtain a set of results, and how you would analyse your results. So it's describe how you would investigate the current voltage characteristics of a filament lamp, which does sound quite complicated. I would say, first of all, there's a clue there in investigate. Investigate means it's a practical. We're looking at current and voltage measurements. And basically a filament lamp is a bulb. So it's a circuit with a bulb in it. And we're looking at current and voltage. Okay. The command word there, describe. Command words are similar across all subjects. You'll see things like state and describe and explain. Describe means to give an accurate and factual account in whatever subject you're writing. But for this question, give an account, describe an account means basically you need to write the method for this practical. Now, how do you write well for this particular type of question? Well, you ask yourself, same as in English, same as in geography, in all your subjects, what's the purpose of the writing? For this, the writing is to instruct, is to tell someone what to do. So your sentences don't need to be long and complicated. You need short, bossy sentences. So you say, do this, then do that, then do this. And you use something called time connectives. Time connectives, that basically just means you could start your sentence with first, do this, next, do that, finally do. Okay, so the purpose of this writing is to instruct someone on how to do this experiment. So what about the science that you need to include? Well, this question is set out quite nicely because it gives you the 3 bullet points to point you in the right direction. Sometimes the question doesn't do that and you need to sort of pull it out of the question. You need to work out what's needed. So clearly the diagram in this case is a circuit diagram with the correct symbols. And then you go into writing those short sentences to give the step-by-step instructions on how to carry out the experiment. Make sure you include details of what you're measuring and what equipment you're using, because that will be important, those scientific keywords for the measuring equipment. And last of all, how you analyse your results. What does analyse mean? Well, it could be that there's a calculation needed, or it could simply be what the graph is. Make sure you include your final sentence. I'm going to put these results on a graph. Okay? Now, if you don't know the circuit diagram, if you aren't familiar with the experiment, I want you to pause the video and go back to last lesson, watch the video and look at the circuit diagram. Now you're ready to write your answer. Remember how to structure it. Short, bossy sentences. I want you to press pause on the video again and time yourself for between 6 and 10 minutes. So here's the model answer then. I want you to look at this mark scheme and use it to correct or improve your answer. I want you to have, when we finish this, I want you to have the perfect 6 mark answer to this question. Okay, there are 2 marks for the circuit diagram. Then there are 2 marks for describing how you get the voltage and the current readings. Notice that the words voltmeter and ammeter are underlined there. It's really important that you demonstrate in your answer that you know voltage is on the voltmeter, current is on the ammeter. Okay, so if you haven't got that, if you're not making that clear to the examiner marking your paper, you won't get those marks. Then there's a mark for adjusting the variable resistor. Now this is the rectangle with the arrow through it on the diagram, or it's the dial on the power supply. You need to have a step in your answer that says how you turn the dial or you adjust the variable resistor to give you the next set of readings for voltage and current, and then you adjust it again for a third set of readings for voltage and current. There's a sentence to say you repeat it to gain a whole set. You don't have to have 5 there, but you do. 5 is best for a graph, but you certainly need to repeat these steps until you get a whole series of readings. And then finally, that's the bit about the analysing it. You'll plot a graph with voltage and current. Okay, so use this. Pause the video again. Use this to correct and improve your answer. So on to the biology question, which is about blood cells. The first thing I would say is that picture, the colour in that picture isn't brilliant. Those smaller shapes in that photograph would be more red in colour, which is obviously a massive clue. But let's read the question. Sarah was looking down a microscope at a blood smear. This is what she saw. Describe the different cells, compare their jobs, and explain some of the adaptations that allow them to do these jobs. This is what we call a structure strip. They're useful to be able to break down these 6 mark questions. It says to bug the question. So bug, draw a B for box, the command words, underline the keywords, and then G, go back and read the question again. So if we want to look at the command words, first of all, you can see what explain means. Like in the last one, you need to give reasons. Describe means what does it look like? Talk about its features, the shape and the look of it. And compare means looking for similarities and differences. So the question asks us to describe the different cells, which means you need a couple of sentences to talk about the blood cells, name the blood cells, and then describe their shape and their structure. The question asks you to compare their jobs. So you need to say what the job of each blood cell is, and how they're different. And the question asks you to explain some, not all, some of the adaptations. So look at the job of perhaps the red blood cell, and can you identify special features of that red blood cell that allows it to do this job better? Okay, so do you have all the information that you need to answer this question? Have a think. If not, press pause, go back to your biology books or to Google Classroom lessons from last week, the week before, or indeed you could go to BBC Bite Size, but pause the video and find the information that you need before we start. Now you're ready to start. You need to time yourself, give yourself between 6 and 10 minutes to answer this question. Okay, so here's the mark scheme for you to use to correct and improve your work so that you have at the end of this a 6 out of 6 mark answer. Up in the right hand corner are the bits of science, the key bits of science. And then you can see that the mark scheme split up into 1 or 2 marks, what you need for 3 or 4 marks, and what you need for 5 or 6 marks. So, you know, if you could just identify some of the cells and their functions, you might be looking at 1 or 2. If you've got the names of all the cells and their functions and described their structure in a bit more detail. You see their RBC, red blood cells, they have that biconcave disc shape. That's a keyword there to get you those extra 3 or 4 marks. Hemoglobin part of the structure, noting that they don't have a nucleus. And then for white blood cells, if you've written there that they can change shape. Other parts of the blood then, you could describe plasma as the liquid and the platelets, which are the bits, it's like the little dark bits in the picture there. Those are the platelets. Finally, if you want the full 5, 6 out of 6 mark answer, for this, there's a need to explain in a bit more detail the adaptations. So the red blood cells have hemoglobin, that's the red bit, and the reason they have that is because it can combine with oxygen. That's its job. That's how the structure matches or makes it better able to do its job. The shape means it can combine with more oxygen. There's a bigger bigger surface area, and they've also got no nucleus, which again means that there is more area there that can combine with oxygen. You might perhaps have had that they're small, so they can squeeze down the small capillaries, or white blood cells can change shape so that they can engulf the any pathogens in the blood. So anything that you need to add, do that now, please. Okay, so last one then is the chemistry question, 6-mark question about the periodic table. The question says an atom of element E is represented as follows. There's a capital E, large capital letter E, and then the 2 smaller numbers, bottom number 17, top number 35. The question then goes on to say, state and explain what information this gives you about element E. So it also says you can refer to the key on the periodic table, which you will find at the beginning of your chemistry exam paper, for instance. So let's look at the command words again. The first one I've circled is state. If you're stating a bit of information, you're just writing it down, just the facts. If it was a 1 mark question, it would perhaps be a 1-word answer. So state what you know. Then it says, I've circled explain the information. So now you might have written down the facts, but you need to say why. It needs a because. So you're backing up what you've said, what you've stated, with evidence and with reasons. Okay? This is the key. This is the information that's given on your exam paper. So you have the symbol in the middle, which is telling you the name of the element. Then the bottom number is the atomic number. Let's look at an example. So if the symbol, if the letter, and it's not just, it won't necessarily always be one capital letter, it could be a capital letter and a lowercase letter, but that's the symbol, Li, and that means that the name of the element is lithium. We've also got bottom number 3, so the atomic number at the bottom is 3, the top number is 7. You've probably done this the last couple of weeks in chemistry, but what does it tell us? Well, you can look up element number 3 on your periodic table and identify that it's lithium. What else does that number 3 tell us? So do you recall learning about the number of protons and the number of electrons and the number of neutrons? The 3 at the bottom tells us that each atom of lithium has 3 protons. Because atoms are always neutral, that means there will also be 3 electrons. And we can work out how many neutrons there are by subtracting the bottom number from the top number. Okay, so that example there is for lithium. You can do the same for the element in your question. So there's the question again. Do you have all the information, all the scientific knowledge that you need to answer it? If not, pause this video now and just go back to last week or the week before's chemistry, or go to BBC Bite Size and make sure that you have all the knowledge that you need. Now, time yourself, give yourself between 6 and 10 minutes to write your answer to that question. And lastly, here's the model answer with all the scientific knowledge that you need. Once again, I suggest you pause the video and add any information that you need to improve or correct your answer. So the top number, the mass number, is 35, and the bottom number, the atomic number, is 17. Those are 2 statements of fact. But we can say from that because the bottom number is 17, we know it contains 17 protons. So this is you explaining. Because it's an atom, it must be neutral, and it therefore has 17 electrons as well, because you've got positive protons and negative electrons, so you need equal amounts of both. Bit more information about the electrons. So if you've learnt the electronic structure, you might be able to remember that there are 2 in the first shell, 8 in the next shell, and so that's 2 add 8 is 10. So there must be 7 in the third shell. You can also work out that the element is in period 3, because that's how many shells there are. There's 2 in the first, 8 in the second, and 7 in the third. So if there are 3 shells with electrons in, that means it's in period 3. And we also know it is in group 7, so these are the columns going down the periodic table, because it's got 7 in its outermost shell. But you can use your periodic table in the exam to help you with a lot of this information. You also, because we know that it's number 17, You can find that element E is chlorine, so you might put there that it would be capital Cl. Oh, and finally, if you do top number, take away bottom number, that will tell you how many neutrons there are. So you can see element E contains 18 neutrons. Right, so there's a lot there. You know, I would say there's probably 7 or 8 bits of science there. Lots of information that is stated and explained. But obviously you can't get 8 out of 6. Be great if you could get 5 or 6 out of 6 though. Okay, so we've done 3 6-mark questions. You know, I don't expect you to get 6 out of 6, but if you can get 3 or 4 marks in an exam, that puts you well above average, and, you know, in with a fighting chance of getting an above average grade. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.